Modern art, it sells for a fortune in exclusive galleries, but what's it ever done for us? Has it influenced the clothes that we wear, or the buildings that we live in, the cars that we drive, the books we read to our children, even the way that we think? I'm Alistair Sook, and I earn a living writing about art. And in this series, I'm going to explore the life and work of four titans of the 20th century: Henri Matisse, Pablo Picasso, Salvador Dali, and Andy Warhol. They all changed their world. But have they changed ours? This week, Andy Warhol. These are some of the most famous, valuable and controversial works of art ever made. For many, they epitomise all that they detest about modern art. This one is a lurid, distorted picture of a film star. There are more than 20 versions. Just one of them sold recently for $28 million. And the artist didn't even paint it by himself. That artist, Andy Warhol, is as famous and controversial as the images he created. Warhol predicted that in the future, everyone will be famous for 15 minutes, and then spent his life making it come true, exploiting the media to transform himself and his eccentric, beautiful entourage into celebrities. Some even say that he heralded the consumer-led, celebrity-driven world we live in today. His influence really does seem to be everywhere, from reality TV to Facebook to magazines, even to the way that music's performed. And his images are incredibly familiar. After all, Andy Warhol's the man who painted Campbell's tomato soup and also canonised the movie star Marilyn Monroe. But just because his work is so widely reproduced and he's so incredibly famous, does that mean that he's actually any good? I'm going to try and find the answer. My first stop is the O2 Arena in London. Good or bad, Warhol's art is worth a fortune today. This box arrived at the O2 carrying one of his works about to go on show before being auctioned. It's a portrait of Michael Jackson, made by Warhol in 1984. It bears all the hallmarks of a classic Warhol. It's a print with brushstrokes of paint layered on top, based not on Jackson himself, but on a photo of him. Warhol simplifies everything. Detail is replaced by strong, garish colours. It's almost cartoon-like. And it both reduces Jackson's face to a mask, but also fixes it forever in a burst of colour. The work can still pull in the crowds. So what is it about Andy Warhol and his art that continues to fascinate so many? I've come to Pittsburgh, in the heart of industrial America. Andy Warhol was born here in 1928, and the city's certainly proud of its son. His work and his image are everywhere. There's even a bridge that's named after him. While I'm visiting, Pittsburgh's having a moment of glory, hosting the world's leaders for the G20 summit. And the spouses of the presidents and prime ministers are being given a tour of the Andy Warhol Museum. This is the bus that's going to the Andy Warhol Museum, so I better get on it. So this is the Andy Warhol Bridge, and the museum is somewhere just on the other side by the river. I think we'll be able to see it in a second. The museum's huge, 7 floors dedicated to Warhol's work. Here we go, this is Gordon Brown's wife just getting out of the car. This is the wife of the French president, Carla Bruni, one of the most stylish women in the world. Andy would have loved to have made her portrait. Hi, Carla. Do you like Andy Warhol? Sorry? Are you a fan of Andy Warhol?
Yes, I am. Definitely.
What do you like about his art?
I like everything. I like very much the Velvet Underground, and I like to see a museum in Pittsburgh.
Do you think that Andy would have liked to have made your portrait?
I don't know.
Because he made one of Jackie Kennedy, and now you're one of the most stylish women in the world.
I don't know, but and every time he would shoot or make the portrait of anyone, it would just be brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Thank you so much.
That was her. I think he would have liked to have made her portrait. I thought she looked I feel a bit like Andy, a bit intoxicated with the magic of the stardust that's sprinkled over the other side of the barricade. Today, Andy Warhol's associated with glamour, celebrity and decadence, but his childhood was very different. His parents were poor Slovakian immigrants, and Andrew Warhol grew up in a slum ghetto during the Great Depression of the 30s, when Pittsburgh was a dirty, industrial, steel-making city. This museum recreates life in the tenements where immigrant families like Andy's lived. Food was often scarce, and Andy's mum would sometimes make soup out of water and ketchup. A tin of Campbell's tomato soup was a real treat. Andy later said that his childhood home was the most terrible place he'd ever been. When he was 8, he was struck down with a neurological disorder, which kept him off school for nearly a year. It left him with the poor skin and thin hair that always embarrassed him, and a shyness he never overcame. He became an anxious social outcast and rarely left the apartment. His mother, Julia, lavished attention on him, providing movie magazines, colouring-in books, comics, as well as cut-out paper dolls, and all of them influenced his work in later life. It's almost as if the kitchen became his first artist studio, with his mum as his assistant. She would reward him with a chocolate bar when he finished a good drawing, and encouraged him to make collages and colour in, and read to him in her thick Czechoslovakian accent. Along with his glamorous movie magazines, Andy's only other escape from his drab and dreary life in the tenement were his regular visits to church. Religion played a big part in Andy's life growing up. He spent weekends with his mother worshipping at church, gazing at the golden screens with their Byzantine icons. During those Grey Depression years, these formed the rich imagery of his childhood. It seems to me that Andy's two childhood passions, Catholic religion and the movie stars in his magazines, later fused together in his art, where celebrities became the icons and the objects of worship. All the lonely months Andy spent in the tenement, with his colouring books and his collages, paid off. He won a place at a local art college, and just a week after graduation, he escaped from the Pittsburgh ghetto. Andy moved to New York in 1949, aged 21, with only a small suitcase and some samples of his work. He dreamt of becoming a famous artist, but in the meantime, just hoped to make a living as a commercial illustrator. He'd arrived in one of the most exciting cities on earth, at the threshold of the fabulous 50s. The boutiques of Fifth Avenue blazoned a new style and luxury. Andy was desperate to join this glamorous world. It was tantalisingly close, but still out of reach. With only $200 in his pocket, Andy arrived here in the Lower East Side and moved into a dingy tenement building that had no hot water and was crawling with cockroaches. But he was edging ever closer to his dream. The New York he dreamt of was just uptown, and soon enough, Andy made his way to meet the sophisticated art directors of the city's fashion magazines, carrying a portfolio of his drawings in a tatty brown paper bag. Andy's persistence began to pay off when Glamour magazine asked him to illustrate a feature aptly called "Success is a Job in New York." They liked his whimsical drawings with their quirky, charming figures. But further success didn't come immediately for Andy, who spent much of his time hanging out in a pretty coffee shop called Serendipity.
I'm just an old-fashioned girl with an old-fashioned mind. Not sophisticated.
This was a popular haunt of all his favourite movie stars. Marilyn Monroe even had her own table here, and it's still going. Recently, Madonna threw a birthday party for her daughter here.
I'd like a plain, simple car, a cerise.
Ah, lovely. Thank you very much. When he was broke, Andy would knock off drawings like these and swap them for pastries and ice cream.
I like the old-fashioned flowers, violets are for me.
Serendipity was an oasis for Andy, where he could sit and gaze across the tables at Marlene Dietrich and Marilyn and indulge his fantasies of life amongst the stars. The owner of the cafe, Stephen Bruce, was one of the first people to recognise the potential in Andy's drawings.
Hi, I'm Stephen Bruce. Welcome to Serendipity.
Thank you. Well, you're the owner of Serendipity.
Yes, I am, and I see you have our favourite drink, which was Andy Warhol's favourite
He
drink
liked this one,
also.
did he? Yeah.
Frozen hot chocolate and lemon icebox pie.
Is that what it is? My God.
Yes, Madison Avenue was just a few doors away, and he was trying to sell all of his artwork to Madison Avenue,
This is the
advertising people. Yes, and he started coming in and having a cappuccino and showing me his rejects. He was very sad because they didn't buy anything. And I said, well, there's a wonderful shoes here. Let's frame them. So we did. We put them on the walls of Serendipity.
Was
And
this
that-
his first exhibition?
First exhibition, yes. And we sold them for $25. We did split. He got $12.50 and I got $12.50.
Back in the 50s, when Andy was coming here, I mean, what was he like? In those days, he dressed in quite a kind of... He was called Raggedy Andy, I think.
Yeah.